Since I started collecting toys loose, I've had a problem. And that problem is getting my figures to stand. And I'm not just talking about like a one-off here. I'm talking about just getting them to stay on display and stand up and not fall down. I'm not even talking about trying to get specific poses. That's a whole nother story. Jay Hernandez with his ridiculous balance ability, not me, not this guy. So naturally, I went on a search for the perfect action figure stand. And spoiler alert, it doesn't exist. So then I had the idea of maybe I'll make the perfect action figure stand. I even got a perfect name. That's a preview for a moment. But I ended up not liking that very much either. So I ended up literally trying every single action figure stand I could get my hands on, as well as some unconventional methods. And in the end, I found that there is only one type of stand for me. You might even call it my only stands. Get it? What is up, everybody? My name is Matt, often called Big Nerdy. Together we are the NWO, the Nerd World Order, and this is Nerdzoic. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna run down every type of stand I tried. I'm gonna go over the pros, the cons, the cost, and in the end, I'll let you know which one became my only stand. Guys, if your wife's around, I dare you to turn it up and just let her hear me say only stands over and over and see if she catches on or if you get in trouble. Either one, it'll be pretty funny, for me at least. The most common type of stand, there's a standard peg stand like you see here. There's many variations of this. Let's start with some of the generics. There is this one. Whoa, I lost it. Well, that one, there's that one. That one has like 3 different pegs so it can fit into different types of feet, but it's not tight, any of them. This one here is by Ring-Side Collectibles. It's actually my favorite of them. It's supposed to be for Mattel wrestling figures, but it seems to work pretty well with literally anything that's a 6-inch figure, 12th scale. McFarlane figures come with their own little black branded stand. NECA sells their version. These are just basic stands for their figures. Speaking of figures that come with stands, every Mezco comes with their own stand, and it's like dynamic or regular. You can put the foot peg in. Hi, I'm Daredevil. 𝐒𝐨 does the same thing. This is one of their stands, and it comes with no peg. This one, you just have a flying stand. I'm not using it because I lost part of it while I was organizing stuff. Then if you go to Etsy, there's like a million different types of stands. I even had some prototypes made. Like I had a gentleman who, I'm sorry, I can't remember who you were for credit at this point because this is pre-flood, so it was a while ago. He made a branded Nerdzoic stand for me as a prototype. He also made like it was like environment type stand. So it was like a Death Star floor, or one looked like a hubcap. So I tried lots of different things. So while I probably didn't try every single variation of this because there's so many, I think I probably tried at least 90% of them. The fact that you never saw me attempt to sell a branded Nerdzoic stand should probably tell you how I feel about this type of stand. But in case it doesn't, let's talk about the pros and cons. On the pro side, it's sturdy, sometimes. Depends on the figure. They're great when they're free. I always use my Mezco ones, and if I don't lose parts, I use my 𝐒𝐨 ones. I love that they're branded for either the company or for the character. Those are great. But the cons are also great, okay? So first off, these are not cheap. On average, you're gonna pay anywhere from like 60 cents to $2 a stand to have dedicated stands for each figure. When you're dealing with expensive figures already, that adds up quickly. But even if money's not an issue, there's a bigger issue, and that is the inconsistency in the whole peg size of each foot. And this doesn't even go like line to line being different. Within the same line, Hasbro, looking at you guys, the hole can be a different size. The ladies get a smaller hole. Some of the men who have like pointed-toed shoes on, if they're in a suit, have smaller holes. Some of the bigger guys have bigger holes. Wow, someone's gonna clip this audio. Stay with me, people. Mind out of the gutter. Bottom line here is, they're not perfect. Lots of pros, lots of cons. What else is there? Oh, by the way, my favorite of all the stands, Ring-Side Collectibles. 60 cents a piece on average, and they tend to work the best. The next type of stand to talk about is dynamic stands. And I'm pulling Daredevil out again, because it's basically any stand that has like something to hold him into some kind of a dynamic pose. So I didn't include these in the same category as the peg stands because they work differently. NECA makes some. These are actually my favorite of these, minus the Mezco ones. Mezcos are the best, bar none. But second place, I'm going to give it to NECA here. These are great, but they still have problems. On the pro side, these are great for dynamic positions or for flying. The NECA one even comes with a suction cup attachment if you wanted to like put it against a wall and have someone lying off the wall. Problem is, I have found that it doesn't last longer than like 15 or 20 minutes. So it's okay for like photography purposes, but not for display. I actually have mine hung up with Gorilla Tape, so you can see how long that lasted. The pros of these dynamic stands is that you can get a figure in pretty much any position, and it's gonna look great. Like you can have them flying, you can have them kicking, you can have them punching, you can have them doing a handstand with Beast if you wanted to. Looking at the cons though, they take up a lot of space. None of us have unlimited space. Well, most of us, almost all of us, do not have unlimited space. And these things are a space killer. Unlike a standard DTOF or a standard Billy bookcase, you're only gonna fit like, I don't know, 10 if you're really creative with how you tier them and use risers. Secondly, they're super expensive. They're like 7 to 10 bucks a piece on average if they don't come with the figure, which to me means that these are okay for an occasional use, but these are not something you can use for your entire collection. But I wanted to include them because it's an option. Let's take a look at some unconventional options here. So unconventional option number 1 is poster putty. So there's many different brands of this stuff. I actually tried this off-brand. I also tried Loctite and Blue Tack, and honestly, they were all almost the same. However, I would say that the Blue Tack is probably the best because it held the stickiness longest and it also didn't dry out as quickly as the others did. This was recommended to me by many people because it's great. It's very cheap. Like we're talking 3-4 cents a foot tops, and it's unseen. You could put it under the foot and it doesn't look like you have it there. It looks like you're just like an amazing balancer. Is that a word? They're also pretty strong, like way stronger than you would expect. Now, the problems with these. 1, after they dry out, which in my experience has been about 3 months, and yes, I've been testing this that freaking long. Once they dry out, getting them off the foot of the figure is a pain in the butt. You literally have to scrape off the little pieces, and that was annoying as could be. If you like to move your stuff around a lot, this is not a great option. And I'll also add, if you have ADD or any sort of fidgeting issue, do not get this. This stuff ended up everywhere in my house, and it was all me. And it was the blue one, of course, Blue Tack. So I ended up having like blue fingernails. I used it like a fidget on my desk over here, and I'm just like an idiot. I'm gonna put this stuff away right now so we don't do it again. Be gone, Kobe. Right in the trash can. You're my witness? Got a witness. So going into my experiment with all these stands, I thought this was gonna be the hands down winner, but I underestimated my fidgeting, and this crap ended up all over my office. Also my clothing, also my fingernails. Also somehow it got matted in my arm hair. It was terrible. Next up is museum wax. Specifically, the name brand of this, Quakehold Museum Wax. The name says it all, supposedly. Used by museums to keep stuff down during earthquakes and earthquakey areas. Pros, super cheap. This thing could last forever. Well, not forever, but you could probably get hundreds of figures out of it for 10 bucks. It's also relatively easy to use. You open it up, you take the little popsicle stick, you stick it in, and boom, museum wax. Guess what? It don't work. I'm sorry, I tried. Unsurprisingly, I hate this. It leaves a little snail trail everywhere that eventually you need a razor to scrape up. It's also incredibly weak. When I was doing my how long will it hold tests, this one was like an hour if you tried to do anything that wasn't something that would stand up on its own. I was really disappointed because this had some great reviews from people. So then I'm like, this has to be a me issue. So I went on Reddit to see if maybe I was doing something wrong, and they said, oh, you gotta refrigerate it. That's a trick, or freeze it. So I did, and guess what? It still sucked. It was just colder. Then there's the Adhesive Dots. These come in a variety of sizes. I bought 3 sizes to test them with. I had a 20mm, a 15, and a 10. The big one was great for deluxe figures. The middle one was great for standard figures, like 12th scale. And then the little tiny 10-inch ones, they were good for females with pointy toes or anything 375. Now, these were introduced to me back during the Toy Tour days, where I was at GMC Collect's place and looking at his collection, and I saw a bunch of Hasbros that were like somehow standing. And if you've ever had a Hasbro wrestling figure, you know they just go boop, especially the ones that have the bounce in them, like the rockers, and his were all standing. And I thought it was witchcraft, but he goes, oh no, man, let me show you. And he showed me. I just pulled old Cactus Jack off my shelf here to help with a little demo. Bottom of his feet, there's little dots of stickiness. These just come on a sheet, you put them on the figure, then you peel off the other side of the paper, and bada bing, bada boom, you're good. Bang, bang. The pros for these are that they are mostly unseen if you use them correctly, and they are super duper cheap. Cons, I only have 2 cons here, and both of them are easily avoided. 1, the paper is hard to get off, so it's 2-sided, right? So when you pull it off the sheet, that one's easy. But to get the other one off, these big fingers were really struggling. So once I figured out, like, wait, this isn't working, I grabbed my long-fingered tweezer things. With these, which you should have these anyway for toy collecting, they're great to pick up little bits if you have big old mitts like me, or hands. Once I figured this out, it wasn't bad at all. It was not hard. So that con was eliminated quickly if you get a pair of long-handled tweezers. The other con that is also probably handled easy is that each one of the backings is its its own little piece of paper. So every time I was done a shelf, I had a pile of paper confetti everywhere that I made a mess with. And I'd be like, kids, come clean up after dad. They didn't. I tried. If you're gonna go this route, I do recommend getting all 3 sizes so that you can size it properly to the figure. And of course, getting these. I'll link to all this stuff in the description. By the way, the average cost of these was like 4 to 6 cents a figure. I did all of my cases in these for about 15 bucks total, and I only used like half my dots. Next up is nano tape, and this roll is almost done, but I can still show you how it works. Basically, it's double-sided tape, but it's really thick and it's insanely strong. It's also somewhat reusable. You can use it once or twice. I don't mean you could take it off of one figure and put it on another, but if you have something in place with it, you can take it down and probably get it to go back up again once. It's also relatively cheap for how much you get in a roll. The cons of this is it's pretty darn ugly, because if you use this on the bottom of a foot, you can see it. That said, it is super helpful for keeping big pieces in place. For example, getting my Galactus to hold the Silver Surfer permanently was not happening. So I took some of this stuff, put it underneath of the effect of the Silver Surfer, stuck it on the hand, and it's been there for about a month with no issues. I also used it to tape some X-Men to the wall as flyers, rather than using the dynamic stand. It really takes a lot of space, like I said before. So this was great for that. I just stuck some tape on their butt and stuck them on, and it was good to go. Like I said, relatively cheap, on average, 10 to 25 cents, like per inch, I would say, is my guesstimate. It really depends on how much you're using. Although I guess if I do by inch, it probably be fine, but I don't have the math available, so I'm just guessing. Then there are these custom hex stands. Now, I ran into these first at a convention last year. I don't remember which one, but I went online and then I found that there's tons of varieties of these. It's not just one person who created them. Some people made them so that they have pegs. Some people made them with interchangeable pegs to help deal with the peg hole size issue. Some use foot clamps, which I kind of like because the clamps fix the whole problem of the foot being a different size. You can go on Etsy and see like a million versions of this for sale. What I think has the most potential is that a lot of these have a spot under the figure for storage of parts. And I love that because I end up with parts everywhere. Now, currently I have a little baggy system that I'm using to keep extra heads, hands, and whatnot in, but it's a pain in the butt and they're never nearby when I need them. This seems like it would be a really nice solution to that problem. So the pros here is number 1, it's a storage solution in addition to a display solution. 2, you have different options for actually getting at the stand. You could use the foot peg, you could use the foot clamp, hell, you could use one of these other options on top of it. The cons though is that they can get really expensive. Like we're talking probably like, I don't know, $5, $10 a piece is what I was seeing on Etsy. And that's a lot of money if you have a lot of figures. That is, unless you have a printer and you're able to design your own version, in which case you could probably do it relatively cheap. To be honest with you, I don't know that much about 3D printing. I'm actually learning about it now because I want to buy a printer soon. So this will be one of the first things I design and build. And if it works well, I'll let you know. And I think the key is going to be designing it with the shelf in mind, because for this to work out correctly, it has to have a snug fit wherever it's going so you can get the most display space out of this as possible. So I need to know what are the tallest figures I'm going to put on the shelf, as well as the length, width, and height of the shelf itself. So after trying everything, the winner is the sticky dots. And honestly, folks, it's not even close. These are the only stands you will ever need, unless you have a 3D printer and want to try to make your own. Now, like I said, I'm going to experiment with making my own hex designs, and if they work out, they might be able to replace the risers, which will make it cost effective. We'll find out soon enough. All this talk about displays, you might need some inspiration. So check out this video here, where I do a collection tour with my buddy Joe, whom I stole the whole sticky dot idea from. And remember, you gotta get old, but you don't gotta grow up. Just be cool and stay nerdy. Later.